What's up, Brian? Hey, how's it going, Jake?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing real good. I got Mondays off now, so it's a nice solid way to finish up my 4th of July weekend here. Had a little extra time off and getting back into the swing of things. How are you doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm blessed and fortunate enough to not have to work a day job. I'm a full-time podcaster, so I'm basically at home hanging out with my boys, my kids, working on podcast shit. So I don't really know when my weekend starts or ends, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, that's awesome.
But I'm
And
good, man.
for
I'm doing really
everybody
good.
that's going to be joining in and watching this in the future, this is Jake Faircloth, one of the founding members of the Wise Men with Joe. And I kind of wanted to get a little bit into how you guys linked up and how that came about and how the Wise Men podcast came about.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a, to Joe and I, the story. Real quick before we go any further, I just have to say something real quick. Today is Joe's birthday. So shout out to Joe. Happy birthday, Joe. I love you. You're my brother. Wouldn't want to do this with anybody else. So that's first and foremost. And this is a story that we've told a couple of times. So the first portion of the story is kind of funny because I worked in a warehouse, like a lawnmower and lawnmower part accessories warehouse for like 10 years. And I eventually became the boss of the warehouse. And we used to bring in young kids from Anoka High School to work part-time to help us, at the end of the day, at the end of the day rush. Joe happened to be one of those kids. So I met Joe when he was 17, which would have made me 23 or 24.
Okay.
I didn't like Joe. I couldn't
No.
stand his little ass. I couldn't stand him. He was just a little punk ass kid to me. Showed up looking like dressed like Lil Wayne, half skateboarder, half gangster.
Right.
I couldn't stand it, and I totally prejudged him. There was no real reason behind it.
Sure.
Other than previous experience with kids like him. And then I think one day, I don't know how, we struck up a conversation about music. And it was my assumption that he was into, like the new age hip hop that I couldn't stand. I'm an old head. I like that old shit. Turns out Joe's like this old soul, and he loves all the old school shit. And most of the newer shit at the time, he couldn't stand.
Right.
So that's when like Discman, you remember the Discmans?
Oh, sure, for sure.
So that's when those were kind of popping a little bit. I guess it was more probably towards the end of that. People started to get iPods, but I had my Discman, and I was like, yo, here, take my Discman and take my giant, thick-ass book of CDs, and while you're working, just start running through music, and then we'll talk about music. So he did that, and we ended up connecting on some music shit, and it turned out, like I said, he had this old soul, loved old music. And then I guess it kind of just our friendship and relationship progressed based on music, and then became more of, a friendship based on everything. And then he went on to get a new job, and I stayed where I was. So we kind of almost disconnected a little bit. Like we were still connected, but we weren't we went from seeing each other every day to like, every once in a while.
Sure.
And I started to have kids and shit, and he was still young, a lot younger, so he wasn't quite there yet. But we reconvened a couple years down the road, and we would reconvene again on music shit. So when something came out that we both really liked, like we've always both been big fans of the game. And so anytime the game would drop, we'd get together, we'd ride around, smoke some weed, listen to the new music. And one night, it was when the documentary part 2 came out.
Okay.
He came and picked me up from my place, and we went and we rolled around for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours just listening to that album. And at the end of it, we pulled back up into my parking lot, and I just said, yo, this podcast shit is really happening. Like, I know you don't know, and he still, to this day, he still doesn't really listen to podcasts, which is crazy.
Right.
But I was like, man, we should do something. We should have, because we'd have great conversations. Like, we should do something with this. Talk about this on the mic. At that time, I was just getting into the Joe Budden podcast. I was very early with the Joe Budden podcast. Brilliant Idiots with Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz. And, I'm listening to the Breakfast Club podcast, and it's like, this is something that's really happening, so we should probably get in on this on the ground floor and start doing this. And he was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what all that shit is. But whatever, let's give it a shot. So we went and bought. Matter of fact, we didn't even buy anything. We just recorded our first episode on my phone.
Okay.
He had an extra room in his house. He's like, come over, we'll talk shit. We had no idea what we were going to talk about exactly or where we were going to start, but we did 2 episodes back-to-back nights where we laid out our top 10 rappers dead or alive.
Okay.
So we started with 10, went to 6, and the next night we went 5 through 1. And then pretty quickly after that, when people started to catch wind, and I have some friends that were in music or whatever locally, people started to catch wind that we were doing this podcast, and soon enough we had people going, "Hey, we want to come on your podcast. We want to be a guest." And then we realized, I'll credit to this day. I'll credit Baby Shell, because
Okay.
Baby Shell. It was when Baby Shell's World came out, and we were introduced to Baby Shell's World, and I was like, I had no fucking idea that we had shit like this here.
Yeah.
I had no idea. To that point in my life, and we're talking 4.5 years ago, almost 5. Hip hop in Minnesota was atmosphere. That's all it was to me. I didn't know we had anything else. I should have assumed, you know what I mean, that we had, just like everybody else, we had rappers from all corners of the city and state, but I just had never really considered it. And then, it turns out Baby Shell's not even from the cities. He's from fucking Red Lake.
Right.
Like, holy shit! Like, they're doing this all the way up in Red Lake.
Right.
People are rapping like that. Like, whoa!
Right. Right.
And I knew who Big Wiz was, and I knew who Long Doe was, Cherry Sky. I knew who those guys were, but I just didn't realize that there was an output like that. I didn't know. So
Right.
once we found that out, it was like, let's go. Let's find whoever wants to come on the show. We'll interview them. And admittedly, we interviewed some people that probably weren't really worthy of the platform, but it didn't matter to us. We didn't care.
Right. Yeah, and it's cool to hear about that, because that's realistically, I moved over here about 4.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
So it's like when you guys were starting and I was working with upcoming hip hop, just very little in the beginning. I was doing a lot of writing for them. But I was the same way. I mean, I knew Atmosphere, I knew a little bit of Brother Ali, but that's what I knew about the Twin Cities music scene.
Yep.
And then the first thing I covered was Somerset, and Jay Plaza and Y Khalik were performing there. And I remember going there and being like, this is better than a lot of the stuff I'm seeing on the big stages.
Facts.
And I started going all right, so now Y Khalik, I remember specifically Y Khalik because I met him afterwards. And Plaza was good too, but that was the first, Y Khalik just was very much in my zone of what the type of hip hop I like to listen to.
Yeah.
So it was the same way for me. I started to that broke it wide open for me. And then I started looking at everything else. And I told a lot of people this. I went from Atmosphere was what I considered to be one of the greatest to now I'm I don't think he makes my top 10 Minnesota rappers right now. There's just so many insanely talented artists out here. And part of it, the other thing that I wanted to get into, and this is my next question to you, is, for me, podcasting and doing these interviews, from the start, I always when I told you the first thing I covered was Somerset, and the first artist I ever interviewed was Mod Sun. And I didn't know much about him at the time, but I just loved the idea of seeing behind the curtain, knowing more about the artist. And that's what always drove me to do these interviews was, to an extent, I want to talk about music, but I also just want to talk about the person and then get what your music is out of you as the person. So, what was kind of the driving force with your podcast? Was it about just talking hip hop with the people in the community? Was it was it the idea to get to know more about that person specifically, or?
So there, there's probably not one answer for that, but I mean, I can tell you it's been a journey where I've had to kind of figure out exactly what I want from this and what this does for me. Anybody that knows me knows this fills a big hole for me. You know what I mean? This is something that has always been, hip hop specifically has always been a really big part of my life, but I didn't always have anywhere to put it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
At one point I had a girlfriend who also really liked hip hop, and her and I could talk about it a lot. That's where Joe and my connection came from. Where I really need a place to put this shit. I don't know, you know what I mean? So if I'm being honest, the biggest thing, that's the answer, is it gives me a place to put this. Now,
Sure.
if you want to get into specifics of what it is that I'm putting in a place, it's the fact that I feel like I have a unique ability to hear music from the standpoint of an artist while not being an artist, which I think is really rare. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's very few people I think out there that can really comfortably sit in a room with an artist and talk to them about their art as if they are also an artist, but they're not. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like Elliot
Yeah.
Wilson is probably my biggest inspiration behind that, because he is someone that can really break down the music, hear the music, understand the music, and openly speak to an artist in a critiquing fashion, and the artist not go, well, who the fuck are you? You don't
Right.
do music. You know what I mean? You're not an
Right.
artist. You don't know what it's like.
Yeah. And
That's what it is.
I agree with that because, and that's kind of why I don't take the same route that you do when you talk with artists. For me, it's always been about finding the person that the artist is versus looking at the art itself, because I'm not an artist, and while I can kind of understand what you're talking about when you listen to art for the art's sake, I can't break it down like an artist can. And that's why I think you do an excellent job on your podcast, is being able to talk to people about it in that same sense that they would talk to somebody else that they're in the studio with.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been more like I just want to hear stories. I want to
Yeah.
hear like the experiences of people. And so like it goes back to, I used to be a big metalhead in high school, and I've talked about this before on here, but like I would go and buy DVD, or I would buy like CDs, but I would buy the ones that came with like the DVD of
Sure.
of like the backstage tour or like this, because it was just like I wanted to know every little thing that was going on, every detail that was going on in there. So it is cool to hear you break it down that way, because you're right. I don't ever think about talking to them as another artist, or talking to them about breaking down certain aspects of their music. It's more always been about just like, who are you and how does that relate to your music?
Yeah.
Um,
I enjoy that part as well, for the record.
right,
Like,
right,
and you often end up there regardless. You know what I mean? Like if you listen to the Wiseman show, we often
right.
end up in that place, which is another great part of just having an open forum like that. We can do whatever we want with our podcast. Nobody can tell us what to do.
Right.
It's amazing.
And
It's
that's
amazing.
it's one of the things I love about you guys is being so from the ground up and starting this and just doing as much as you could to put out content and grow your brand and do everything else. You now control your own narrative to be able to put who you want on, to be able to talk how you want on your podcast. And
Yeah.
some people are going to rock with it, some people aren't, but you know that what you're putting out is consistently what you want to put out.
100%.
So, we talked about this a little bit. You sat down with some of the bigger names in hip hop in the Twin Cities. You sat down with some people that are like just really up and coming, some of the smaller ones. So, what's one of your favorite interviews? Like, what's one of the ones that really stands out to you?
So I want to be very careful and very clear for anybody that might see this in the future, just to know that I love all of our interviews. I love
Sure,
them all. I love
absolutely.
every artist, everyone that we interview. My personal, I think it's probably a tie, and they're both very recent. The first one being the last interview we did of 2019, which was with Amir Abdullah from the Minnesota Vikings. It felt, I don't know what it was. It was a therapeutic episode where I felt like we kind of got to prove ourselves as journalists in that one, where it was like, okay, here's this guy that's a professional athlete. He's in the NFL active, and there was no type of being starstruck. There was no type of holding back anything we wanted to say, because he's this, big professional athlete working in this business that seems to be, I mean, kind of messy when it comes to PC. Like, it kind of doesn't know where it stands. Sometimes it's a little bit racist. Sometimes it's, you know what I mean, with the whole cap
Right,
situation. It was
right,
like,
in the NFL.
it was like, here, exactly. We got to sit down with this guy, and it was like, it felt more natural than any interview we've ever done. It was no different than interviewing, Joe Blow that just dropped his first mixtape out of St. Paul. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
and more than just the interview was just the entire interaction for the entire day. We spent the whole entire day with him and his friend that he brought with. You know, we all went to Chipotle afterwards and had more conversation. And he was open. You know what I mean? He talked about a lot of shit. He talked about shit that he probably shouldn't have. That maybe
Right.
he might have got shit. He might have got fined. You know what I
Right.
mean, I have no idea.
Right.
So I hope not. But I still talk to him to this day. So I'm assuming he would have told me that. So that interview was great. And then my favorite of 2020 was Mac Irv.
Okay. Right.
Because that was one that I carried a lot of energy from Mac Irv for a really long time that needed to be let go. And some of it was negative. Some of it was used to be negative, and I needed to let him know that it wasn't negative anymore. You know what I mean? And I needed.
Yeah.
I'm the type that needs to do that stuff face to face. I don't like, you know, messages are cool and tweets are cool, but like I want to see you face to face. I want to look in your eyes and let you know, like, hey, anything that was what it was, it's not that anymore. I love you as a person. I love you as an artist. You know what I mean? It's the same reason I don't like all these little fake ass apologies that these people are writing right now. Like, at least get on the internet and show us your face. Let me look at your eyes. That's it.
Right.
So, not to get off subject, but that
Yeah.
the Mac Irv episode, that was one where like I couldn't sleep afterwards because I was kind of on a high. Like it felt good.
Right. To get rid. I mean, and it's true, and it's hard to hold on to some of those things, and sometimes it's like a bad day that you meet them on, and it spirals out. Sometimes you just don't have a lot of interactions with people. So if you have one or two bad interactions with them, it may stem into a whole lot of other stuff. But it's definitely good when you can get that out. I've had experiences like that in the past where I've, you know, felt a certain way about an artist, and then when you finally sit down and talk with them and have a legit conversation, and not just like you saw them at a show and were like, oh hey, yeah, everything's all good. Like having that actual full-on conversation, I think it leads to a lot of good things.
And I think he needed it just as much as we did, because we both kind of found out during the interview, like he was carrying some anger towards us. Like it was real beef. Like there was real beef between us. And I don't think even we realized, like, oh shit, like it kind of reached a level where like we were not good. Things were not good.
Right.
So I'm glad that we were able to clear that energy. That shit just felt good to do.
Absolutely, that's great. And you know, we just briefly touched on this, but this is something that I wanted to talk about a little bit, is just what's going on in the scene right now. You know, everything's been shooken up, but you know, there's kind of that target that got put on Rhymesayers, but it went through a whole lot of other directions. And I mean, it started going into the punk scene, it started going into all sorts of different scenes. And you know, I think
know that.
Yeah, I had started to see a couple people. I mean, it went into just like high school abuse. It dove off into so many lanes where it was like, and one of the things I'll say that was surprising to me is, you know, to an extent, some of these things are going on in the music industry, even though you may not see it. Like for me personally, I'm a photographer, but I go to shows and I take photos and then I go home. Like I'm not going to the parties afterwards. I never really go to any after parties. So like, I just was completely off my radar until it got brought to this extent. But what shocked me was that it wasn't like a handful of girls were coming out to talk about this. It was like, I can't name a girl in the scene that wasn't saying something about it, that was either working, that was a model, that was an artist, that was worked backstage, that worked in offices. So I guess, coming from your standpoint, you've talked with a lot of men in the scene, a lot of women in the scene. What has it been like to see all of this kind of come unfold right in front of us?
It's been confusing. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's been confusing. It's been disturbing. It's been it's been really disheartening. So while I'm not at the place where I was with it, 2 weeks ago or a week ago even, but like 2 weeks ago when all this stuff started coming out, it made me feel embarrassed. It made me feel ashamed. It made me not want to be a part of this community at all. It made me start looking at everybody with a side eye, including myself. And I think, to echo what you just said, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a woman right now just in your life, not in the music scene, that hasn't been on some level affected by this shit.
Yeah.
Men got a lot of fucking work to do, man. I mean, that's really what I'm getting from this is we got a lot of work to do. For one, I'm trying really hard to just listen. You know, I think as of right now, like, men want to have all these opinions, and men want to, talk about, talk about what consent is and what consent isn't. And it's like, whatever your opinion is, you can have your opinion. But as of right now, like, just shut up. You know what I mean? Just shut up. Unless you're denouncing shit that you've seen or been a part of, just shut up and listen, and just believe these women, believe what they're saying. You know what I mean? I've talked about it on a couple of other platforms, including our own platform just this week, about how we actually recorded an episode the day that all this stuff kind of came out, and we did about 90 minutes at the beginning of the episode talking about it. And afterwards, all the people that were involved in the conversation agreed, like, we can't put that shit out because we're a whole bunch of people that were just sitting around the table talking about this shit like we had any idea what we were talking about, and we really didn't. So I think it would have come off as really inappropriate and maybe even insensitive. So yeah, it's a mess, dude. I don't even know what to think. I don't even know exactly what to think. I don't know what, like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
It's hard for me because, like, there's the side of it where it's like, I think that men need to have conversations amongst themselves about the stuff that's going on and to address it on these things. But then there's the other side of me that's like, I don't really know to an extent, like, because I was entirely blindsided by it too. And the one thing that you said that I really resonate with is not just the, like, side-eyeing at everybody else, but at myself and going, man, I really need to go back and, like, check and see, was I acting this way? Because sometimes I don't think about it, and when I see it happen from somebody else, it's easy to see it when somebody else is doing it. It's because you're just like, look at that, that's terrible. But then you go, man, have I ever done something like that? Like, have I ever promoted somebody because I was trying to, I thought they were cute or whatever else? But, and it's just, there's a lot that goes into it that you never really think about. And that's why, again, I think it's important what you said too, is listening. And that's something I've tried to do a lot of: listen, read, and not react. Because it's really easy to react to stuff, like, especially really heavily emotional stuff and stuff that's directed at you, even though it's not directed at you. Like, It's the same stuff when it comes to, all the Black Lives Matter, and when people are talking about white people, and you got to step back and go, yeah, it's directed at me, but it's not directed at me. And it's a point where I just need to listen to it and figure out what's going on without reacting to what's just the surface level things of what's being said. So, I think there's a lot to be said on that topic, and I think we just continue to listen to it as it comes out, and really I think that's how we progress in the music scene here. But I do think there is a lot of good that's coming out of it too. You're starting to see people coming together with ideas, people coming together with, like, the consent training and all that sort of stuff that I think is really popular, and people genuinely believing these women and pushing them to the forefront and saying, like, there's of course there's going to be the people that are going to try and downplay it and push it aside, but you have a lot more people, I think, that are being supportive right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that I think, and this isn't just with this subject, that want things to be how they were in the old days, which I don't know what days those are, but I guess I would challenge anybody that says anything like that to just look at the slogan of our president.
Right.
You want to go back to the old days? You want to make America great again? Because I don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't. Yeah, that's so. To me, that falls into that category. I don't. Man, fuck. Like, look, we can reminisce on the old days. There are things about the old days that are great, but we can still recognize the things that are happening now. And this is progression. It's progression, man. The fact the fact that something along the lines of consent training has to be a thing.
Right.
There's a fucking problem, bro. Like,
right.
That's a problem. So that's how I look at it.
Well, and I also looked at, I forget who it was, but it was a comedian talking about it, because there's a lot going on in the comedy world as well right now with Chris D'Elia and and Danny Masterson and all that sort of stuff that's going on. But they said, you know, it's actually kind of a good thing when you look back and see how messed up it was, because that means that we're progressing. Like if you can look back 10 years and go, and if you can look back 10 years and say, wow, that's fucked up, like that means you're progressing as a person, to be like, I get that happened, and like maybe there was some good stuff that happened in there too, but like when you look back and see certain things, they should disgust you, because that means that we're moving forward. Like if you're still happy to see these things, then that means you're not moving, like you're not coming with everybody. So there's good and bad in it. I think a lot of people are going to see a lot of growth. But yeah, so what I want to jump into now is kind of the heart of everything that we do here. It's called Quarantine Questions. So this is just some short answer questions that just kind of go over what life has been like in quarantine for you.
Okay.
So the first one is, which artist has been the most heavy on your playlist as of late?
Ooh. So I have artists that I listen to every single day, and then I have artists that I'm listening to right at this moment. This is a tough question for a true hip hop head.
Right.
Because if we're talking about like today, is this yeah, for sure. Juice Lord is in there. I've been listening to that today. I've been listening to NFG Mayhem just dropped a project, which is fire.
Yep.
But like I listen to Soda Supreme on a daily basis. Like he is like, that's like my go-to. He's like, I listen to him as much as I listen to Drake. You know what I mean? Like it's my go. He's one of my go-tos. Stilo Real. I know I can't. That's a tease because that album is not out yet. But I've been listening to that regularly. I mean, to add another person whose album isn't out yet, Mac Irv's album, which I'm gonna tell you right now, Mac Irv's album is a fucking classic. Wait till that shit drops. I'm telling you. I believe in this album like I believe in, I was going to say Jesus, but I'm not really a religious guy. So, but yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of those guys as far as local artists. If the question is who's gotten me through quarantine, man, I mean, this is going to sound cliche, and I hate that this sounds cliche, but I listen to Drake more than I listen to anything through quarantine.
Yeah,
he's a whole quarantine vibe, bro.
He's got unlimited hits, so exactly. you can't really go wrong with it. You're gonna find something you like there daily, and you're gonna. I mean, it's enough where you can start, go to the end, and repeat, and it'll be a week later. So
exactly. So I mean, that's my answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all great options there. Mac Irv, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that Stilo, and of course, I mean, Juice Lord's project is unbelievable right now. Like it's been just on repeat. It's a hit. Midnight came out, and it's been on repeat. So being in quarantine, I know you have kids and everything, but it does tend to force you to be by yourself a little bit more often. And this is my favorite question to ask, because I'm just a weirdo, and I tend to do a lot of weird stuff when I'm by myself. So like the big thing I always bring up is like I make weird faces. Like if I'm listening to music, or even if I'm not listening to music, I'll just make odd faces, and I'll catch myself sometimes and be like, what are you doing? So what's like one thing that you caught yourself doing during quarantine where you're kind of like, what am I doing right now?
And
I mean, not everybody's got something, so it's
I'm never alone, man.
Sure.
I got 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I've been in quarantine with them.
Do you ever find yourself, because this is another thing, like if I'm with my nieces a lot, I find myself doing kind of odd kid-like things. Like, you ever catch yourself like watching a show too long, or? Yep.
Definitely have done that.
Yeah.
Definitely have been watching some YouTube channel that my kids watch way too long after they've already been in bed. Yep. That's a good one. I've done that. I'm not gonna lie. I've done the LeBron James strut. I've done that in my room after I make a nice dunk on 2K. I've done that. That's a good one right there. I take 2K a little too seriously sometimes. Ralio, I see you, bro. I'm sorry, I didn't mention. I did not mention the Royal Family mixtape is fire. I should have mentioned that. That is another one that's been on rotation, and the Project Twins. Project Twins. If any people haven't checked that out, I think Prince Riley. I mean, I think the whole Royal Family is crazy. I think they're all about to just. They could burst through at any given time. But Mac Turner and Prince Riley, their tape is fire, super fire. Go check that out too. That's been on rotation.
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna talk to you after this too about because there's so much music in the Twin Cities, and I know you've been doing this for long enough where you got ins with a lot of, and I wouldn't even say ins, but you know who's coming up, you know who's doing a lot of stuff, and so we'd love to hear some more, and I'm always open to hearing new music, so I'm gonna check out him as well and the whole Royal Family and see what that is. So then the next question I have for you is, diets become a big part of people's lives early on in the year. Usually you get your New Year's resolution, you're trying to get your summer body, but quarantine hitting right in March kind of just threw it all out the window. Yeah. So what's one thing that you've either overeaten or you can't get enough of during quarantine?
So my answer for both of those things is going to be the same thing, and that's Cane's.
Cane's, yeah, Riz. Oh man,
yeah, I can't stop eating Cane's, and I've definitely eaten way too much of it. 100%.
Yeah, their bread is like, I'll eat that all day.
Yeah, that's my answer for both.
Absolutely. Then this one is another question that I really like to hear, because 2020 it's one of the most stressful years I think everybody's lived through that's in this time period. And from start to now, there's just been so much that's going on. We still have an election year to come. We still have what could be the second wave of this COVID coming, amongst all of the social issues that are coming to the forefront right now. So what's something that you found yourself like being able to use to like decompress and de-stress and kind of recharge?
Can I say weed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, weed helps. Man, I got to be completely honest with you. I have actually really embraced and enjoyed quarantine. And I know a lot of people are complaining and saying, bro, if a second wave comes through and we got to be locked up again, I'm going to be all right. I don't mind it. I like having my wife home. I like being around my family, my kids. I don't fucking leave the house anyways other than to go to the studio. So it doesn't really change shit for me. I'm not all that stressed, other than, like, honestly, the social issues are what stresses me out the most.
Sure.
And, that's not even so much stress as it is just making sure that I'm continuing to be fucking loud about it. You know what I mean? That's really, like, shit's going to change. Shit is changing. Right. And it's going to change. So I think just staying on top of it, I have so much appreciation for the people that are out there on the front lines. But yeah, I mean, weed is the answer, but weed is, weed's good whether you're stressed or not. So
yeah, and I actually just I just started going to this place for vitamins and stuff, but then I started seeing that they had like CBD edibles, and that's something that's been helping me sleep a lot more lately. And I'm a big advocate for all of it. I mean, I've always, I can't smoke weed anymore because THC actually gives me just horrific anxiety now. But CBDs have continued to help me with a lot of stuff. So I've been using these chocolates lately that just, I take one before bed and it works out phenomenally. So, so the last question I have for you is, you seem to be pretty comfortable with quarantine, so I don't know what the answer will be to this, but we're starting to see stuff kind of slowly opening up right now. So what's one thing that you just like can't wait to come back into society?
I mean, I want sports back. I want sports back. I do, but I mean, I don't want sports back at the risk of people dying and getting sick. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I want to see LeBron come back and win that ring. I want to see the Twins play.
Well, they're
That's
back in training camp now, right?
Yeah, but
So
I just read that it sounds like they might. It sounds like they might not make it. I don't
oh
know. It's
really?
I
Yeah.
have a feeling. I mean, and I've been saying it for a while. I have a feeling we're not going to see any of it.
Yeah.
I have a feeling the NFL might not even start.
Yeah, or at least you won't see crowds. You might see empty stadiums and stuff like that. But
Hey,
I
I'm good with that.
yeah, I am same. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, King Ralio, Patrick Mahomes deal was absurd.
It's amazing.
There is nobody that deserves that money, and I think that's going to be the end of the Chiefs. Like I've said this forever. Tom Brady didn't win all those championships without taking massive pay cuts on
He didn't
like
take no pay cuts.
he was
He
only
took
getting paid like 19, 20 mil a year.
he took pay cuts on paper.
Well, that's true. He back ended it all where it was
Oh,
yeah, right. It was a
he was
thought
getting
out process.
for sure. They were making that money up somewhere else. I guarantee it.
Well, what I think it was I think they just were like, look, if you have 6 Super Bowls, you're going to get every endorsement deal ever. So 20 million a year, but you're also going to make that up easily with Nike contracts and everything else. So just take the 20 million and you'll be set for life. Andy had a billionaire supermodel wife, so you know.
Yeah. I gotta imagine that the Chiefs' thinking is, we got one. Let's give them that money, and see if we can't get 2 more before we got to pay everybody else.
That's
And then
true.
if we're just paying him big ass money to lose for the last
Right.
6-7 years of his contract, fuck it. So what? Plus,
Right.
by the time they get to that second half of his contract, that money ain't gonna be that serious. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
Everybody thought Kirk Cousins was getting paid like outrageous money, and he was only the highest paid quarterback for like a week. That's how it always works.
Right. Right. So the last thing I want to do here is kind of open it up. So I know Christina, it sounded like she had a question for you, and kind of open this up to the fans. So it looks like Siri Too Cold here has your top 5 hip hop artists coming out of Minnesota right now. It's always a good question. Everybody wants that list.
Yeah. Well, unlike most people, I am not going to shy away from a list. I will hurt feelings. The problem that I have with the top 5 list is I need to know. Maybe he can answer, or he or she can answer the question. Do you want top 5 rappers like with the pen, or are we talking like top 5 artists that I could see like blowing up? Because that's 2 different lists. That's 2 different categories for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so it does kind of depend. I could give both.
Yeah. We'll start with the pen because that's what I'm interested in hearing that too. And then Christina, if you want to ask your question here, we'll answer that next.
So I can right off the bat, I'll tell you, number 1 overall with the pen is Nucky. Like, I don't think anybody touches Nucky's pen. Period. And that's friends of mine that I think have super. I'll tell you, number 2 is Stilo Real, and I don't think as much as I love and Stilo's my brother. Like, that's like that's family.
Right.
He's nice, but Nucky, bro.
I'll tell you this. The first time I ever met Nucky was at 7th Street, and somebody was just playing a beat, and he just started freestyling in the crowd, and I went, "That's better than like a lot of people I hear sit down and write." And this kid, he was just going off the top. Actually, I just got done disc golfing with him this weekend. He'd never been out. Yeah, he'd never been out discing, and he's like wanting to work out. So I was like, yeah, let's go out and disc. And like first couple throws were brutal, but he started to get the hang of it, and now we're gonna try and do it a little more often. But he was fucking with it by the end of it.
Very, very dope. Yeah, he's number 1 with a bullet. And I honestly, I would put him probably in my top 5 as far as artists that could blow too. I don't know if I put him at 1. So he's 1 with the pen. 2 is Stilo Real. He says he's hanging it up. We'll see. Number 3, I got to put my sis B. Croc, another person
Absolutely.
who's just different, alien-esque.
Yep.
And then 4 and 5. Oh man, 4 and 5 are a little tougher. I'm gonna say Plaza.
He's got a lot of nice metaphors. I do like Plaza. He's got a lot of nice little wordplay in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Plaza, and I say it reluctantly only because there's two reasons. One, he technically isn't from here. However, he is. The question was who's coming out of here, and he reps Minnesota. So
Yeah.
so I'm gonna give him that, and then this one might surprise people, but actually might swamp him. But Kaleem the Dream.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. From what I've seen from him, I'd like to see him put a little more work out and see how consistency stays with it. But from what I've seen him put out, I agree with that.
You might have missed it, but he did drop a project a few months ago.
You know,
And it is
yeah,
monstrous.
I don't know if I listened to that. Maybe
Definitely
I
check
need to be a little more on top of it then.
Definitely go check that out. It's monstrous. He's monstrous. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry, Plaza. I'm putting Plaza at 6. I got to throw Louis Blaze in there.
Yeah, Louis Blaze, what he's been doing, and he's been doing so much lately, and I absolutely co-sign that. I would even jump. I would put Juice right up there towards the top as well. I've really been liking what he's doing, and not only I would put him in the could blow. I really think that he's got the ability to really jump out of here and
100%
make something out of himself. So
he would be in my top 5 artists that I think are have extreme mainstream marketability.
right.
He would be in that mix as well. I think Mac Turner. I think Mac Turner is special. I think it's really just a matter of time for him, I think.
Right.
And then Nucky would be in there. I would put Plaza in there. Plaza's got to put his foot on the pedal, though.
Yep.
And then I think, like I told you, this Mac Irv album is special. I think once this album drops, people are going to be blown away at how much better he's gotten and what this body of work looks like. That's my answer. There it is.
Okay. Perfect. So here's the question from Christina here. It says, first question is for Jake, second is for both of you. You said you're more of an old head fan. How do you reconcile that passion for old school being objective to the new artists?
Okay, so she said that was for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know exactly how I worded it. I think I might have just called myself an old head because I am 35, and 35 in hip hop is, it's a little old. Not really, but I actually don't. I don't have a problem adapting to the new age of hip hop. I don't love everything that comes out, but it's not really a reconciliation for me. Like I have an extreme appreciation for all art forms. I don't love them all. I don't like them all, but I can understand. And the thing that I always try to remember, I'm very good at putting myself in other people's shoes. When my mom heard me listening to Snoop Dogg when I was 12 years old, she was like, what in the fuck are you listening to? You know what I mean? And so I've tried really hard to make sure that I'm not doing that when I hear my kids listening to, Young Thug or Juice
right.
or Juice World, or, you know what I mean? I've always tried really hard to adapt to it. And once you open up your mind to it and understand, like, this is just as important as the shit we grew up on.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they're just as talented. It's just a different sound. It's a different style. And really, we should be fucking thanking these guys that we all say are weirdos because a lot of them are the ones that are responsible for moving things forward. We don't want to hear the same shit over and over and over again. You know what I mean? There has to be new sounds. I mean, imagine if everything still sounded like NWA.
Right. And that's
hip hop wouldn't be where it is.
That's a huge thing. And the other thing I always say is, if you don't allow the creative process to work itself out, you're going to get a lot of guys that are just like, they'll be a one-hit wonder, or you kind of forget about them as you grow older. But you're still like, a guy like Young Thug doesn't exist if you don't allow the whole creative process to happen. And Young Thug, to me, he's just a brilliant artist. Like as a musician, right. So that has to, for me, that's why I never get mad at it. Sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes it doesn't sound very great to me, but like a Danny Brown doesn't happen if you don't allow the creative process to come out, because who else would put a polka beat to something and then kill it rapping over it? Like that doesn't happen when you don't allow it. So So yeah, I agree with you on that entirely. It's not even really about a reconciliation. It's just about appreciation and being able to understand that that's talent, even if it's not a talent that I'm going to sit and listen to all day long.
Exactly.
Young Thug is a talent that I will. I mean,
Same.
he's
Agreed.
phenomenal. But yeah, so the last thing I want to kind of do here then is turn it over to you. Let you kind of speak on what you guys have coming up. If you've got anybody coming up on the podcast, anything that's coming out, any merch, anything like that.
So we are working on merch. There's been a hesitancy to do merch just because I'm not sure what the market is for people buying merch for a podcast. It's it's one of those things where like it's risk. It feels risky. You know what I mean? But I think we're gonna go ahead and probably pull the trigger. We got some cool shit coming with the merch. We're gonna do some different shit. We did just move studios, so we got a whole new setup now. We hired a camera guy. So we got someone working the camera full time for us, so we're not just recording off our iPhones. So we got that going. We just dropped our first episode that we recorded in the new studio with the camera guy. Everything looks way different. The whole studio is just a vibe now. We got a full bar. We got a little lounge area with the TV and the PS4. So yeah, I mean it's different now. It's a little different. Things are going to be a little different. We just did, like I said, we just released episode 202 with SJ the Afrocentric Ratchet, who is another phenomenal artist coming out of Minnesota. I could have named her too, honestly. She had some great insight. She was the perfect person to talk to at a time like this. She checked me on my own shit right on the damn podcast, which I love when people do that. So that just happened. I'm hesitant to announce guests because then guests cancel and people are like, yo, what happened to that guest? But I will tell you with 99.9% certainty, tomorrow night we'll be in the studio with John Ray, another guy who just dropped a phenomenal project. See, the shit just keeps coming up.
Right. That's what I mean. There's so much that it's hard to keep on top of some of the time. And you know what I've told people too is a lot of people will be like, man, you just like say that all these people are phenomenal. Like they can't all be that great. But I'm like go listen. Like if you want to tell me it's bad after you listen to it, that's fine. But like I'm gonna tell you my honest opinion. And there's just a lot of people that are putting out really, really good music right now.
Yeah, we're just an untapped market. That's all it is. So anybody that says they can't believe it, you just haven't tapped into the market.
Right.
Because I would have told you the same shit 5 years ago.
Right.
Like, no,
right.
There's no fucking way. And then someone played me Baby Shell, and I was like, yo, what?
Baby Shell is somebody that I always forget about until somebody brings them up, and then I'm like, why don't I tell people more about Baby Shell? Because like there's the ones that I always bring up, and like it is, Nuck, guys like that, Juice and Y Khalik and guys like that, and then then somebody will bring up somebody else like that, and they're like Baby Shell, and you're like, oh yeah, check out Baby Shell too, or like Tall Paul, or like
for real, Tall Paul too.
It just keeps going, like
that's a fact. That's a fact.
As for the second question, I just wanted to answer this real quick for Christina too. She said she's a new manager with a new artist, and any tips that we have for helping them. The biggest tip I can tell you is when live music starts to come back, just be around, just network. Be with people. That's how I met you guys. That's how I've met a lot of people, is just being at shows, talking to people. Eventually you're going to start meeting people that want to work with you. Don't be like, for me anyways, being pushy has never been the way to go about it. I've never found success doing it. I've always found success just waiting for the right time, and then, being open to just talking with people, building relationships, and then talking about what you do. If you just come in trying to throw mixtapes at people, it's never gonna work out.
Never. Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. The only advice I could give you would be from like a perspective of someone that does interviews. Don't ask for an interview in the comments of one of our posts.
Yeah.
Do not DM us like, yo, what's good with an interview?
Right.
Click the fucking email button, send a nicely worded professional email, and send me links. Don't, you know what I mean? Like and this is for anybody else that's watching, because I get so much of that shit and I'm ignoring all of it. I'm ignoring all of it. If you're not professional enough to request, our services
Right.
in a professional manner, then I'm not giving you the time of day. And that is not, because it doesn't come from a disrespectful place either. That comes from a place of somebody that is busy. I
Right.
don't have time to seek
Right.
your shit out, figure out who you are, what you're doing, what you're trying to push. Just tell me what you're doing. That's it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Send an email, let me know what you're doing. And
Yeah,
I know a
press
ton of people
kits.
out there, so many people out there are going to see this and hear this and be like, I sent them an email and they didn't say shit.
Right.
You might have been whack. I don't know.
Right. Right.
I'm not gonna nicely type out an email back to you saying, no, sir, you are not good at rep.
Right.
It's not
right.
gonna happen. So.
Right, and that's true. And you're right. I mean, you're sending out a lot of emails, and you also have to be good at rejection. I mean,
Facts.
That's one thing. Like when I've reached out to a lot of different places, I've gotten rejected from a lot of people, and there's times where some of it'll work out, and you'll just go. They're like, "How did you get that interview?" And I go, "It just worked out. Like the timing worked out. Everything just aligned right, and I just happened to be at the top of their list when that happened." So part of it is just, there's a little bit of luck, there's a little bit of professionalism, but it's a lot of just being able to accept rejection, being able to push through, and just continue to go, and it'll continue to move on.
Yeah. I think your best bet in 2020 is make as much noise on the internet as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're making noise on the internet, I'm gonna see you.
Yep.
And I might hit you up and ask for an interview. You know what I mean? Like that's just what it is.
Absolutely. Well, hey man, I wanted to say thanks for chopping it up with us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody that's been watching. It was great to catch up with you. We haven't had time at a live show recently, so hopefully stuff will start to kind of pick back up, and we'll be able to catch up in person. And see, man, I'll tell you what, I'm hugging everybody. When this thing's over, like everybody's getting hugs. Like, watch out, man. I'm over this. Just gotta stand 10 feet away from people, and like just gotta dap somebody up.
Yeah, man, I'm cool with the daps. I mean, if you need a hug, I guess a hug is what you get. Yeah. That's fine. But yeah, man, I'm with you, and I appreciate your time, man. This has been fun. If you ever need me again, let me know. Or if you want to do this with Joe, let me know too. I'll in on yours.
Absolutely, it'll be fun to catch it up, and maybe we can do one from the studio too. It's I'm excited to see the new place as well. I saw the old basement studio, and that was nice too. But it sounds like this one's just a little bit of an upgrade from that. That should be pretty dope.
Yeah, very dope, man. Everybody go check out episode 202 right now, and 201, and 200, and 199. Go back through the catalog just to listen to all of them.
There's phenomenal ones all the way back. So. I definitely agree with that statement. And we'll catch up soon, man. It was good to see you.
You too, bro. I appreciate it.